everyone, and welcome back to the Flipping the Bird Sports podcast. I'm Ryder Martin, your host, and I'm joined today by my new co-host and assistant sports editor, Luke Lawhorn.
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm new here, sophomore here at UTSA, and new sports writer assistant here.
Well, we're really happy to have you, Luke, and thank you so much for joining me today. So we got a lot to get into. So I want to start today by talking about the UTSA basketball programs, and I want to start today on the men's side of things, of course. This past week, we dropped games against North Texas on the road, 45-69, and then on Middle Tennessee State on Monday night, now 84-75. So, Luke, I wanted to kind of get your opinion on how the season's going so far for them, and, where do you think this team really ends up by the end of the season?
I think we need to start focusing on setting a culture. Because are we bottom half of Conference USA right now?
We are the seller team.
Yeah, I think we need to not necessarily mail it in, but we don't have people that we're going to lose that are going to affect the program as much. I know we had people that left the program before we started the season, so I think that you're not going to come back and go to March Madness or even compete in the Conference USA tournament or whatever. So I think focusing hard at practice and getting your recruiting status up is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, we're going to the American in, potentially 2 years, maybe even sooner than that. I mean, we're going to go from playing teams like North Texas and UAB consistently to looking at SMU. And I know that they're leaving, but there's potential for an overlapping year with Houston. I mean, the level of competition in the American is just going to be so much higher, so we need to really focus on building that culture up and getting some recruits in the building again. Because this really is that rebuilding year. It sucks where we are being at the bottom. Nobody likes being at the bottom. But, I mean, you got to remember, we did lose Javon Jackson and Keenan Wallace from last year and everything. And those two were our pretty much entire scoring department. So replacing both of those guys at this year, while I'm disappointed we are where we are, it's fair to say that it shouldn't be a surprise of where we are, is what I think I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah, I mean, our football team did the same thing. Maybe not as bad, but if you look 5-6 years ago, losing records, and then the past 3 years, the only thing that changed was a culture change.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as basketball does that, that could change the whole building around. I know that they're going to get a new building built soon, which will help out in recruiting. The AAC shouldn't be taken lightly because wearing the AAC on your jersey and your football team being good, that's going to bring recruits here. You're in Texas, so yeah, as soon as you get that culture changed, it's going to work out.
Yeah, I think that, the facilities are going to be kind of that big thing that really pushes us forward. Because, I mean, looking at it right now, the Convocation Center has its charms. It is a high school gym when it kind of gets right down to it. I mean, you need to get a better basketball game facility, but you need that training facility. I mean, looking at the, race building now we have for the football team and everything is just astounding. And I really think that kind of helped sell a lot of the recruits from this class for football. So I think you get that same sort of thing for basketball. You could really see an elevation of the program back up from where we are. Because kind of like you're alluding to, basketball is really where football is, right? Was 4 years ago. In that we didn't have a direction. Everything just kind of seemed dead in the water. And that's kind of where we are with basketball right now. At least on the men's side. Women's side, I think we actually have a vision going forward. Mm-hmm. But men's side, it just does kind of feel like we're a little aimless right now. So I think you're right. Get those facilities, get the culture built. We start going somewhere. And we still have some decent pieces for this season. Like Jacob Germany's playing pretty dang well from the center spot. I mean, Diu Jiang and everything, left for that little tiny bit of the season to, pursue professional opportunities, came back. He's been looking pretty good. And Jordan Ivy Curry does score the basketball. He's just not consistent at it yet. So, I mean, if he comes back again for another year, maybe gets a little more seasoning on him, this team has pieces for the next 2 years. It's just about putting it all together because this year the pieces just don't quite fit right, and I think that's why you're seeing struggles, especially on the road where, as far as I know, we're still winless. I think we're 0-11 now. So, I mean, that's just not sustainable. You have to find a way to get out of that and build.
Yeah, and I think we're a fairly big college here. Everybody on our basketball team, they love to hoop. So I don't think any of them are going to leave within the next couple years and just give up these dreams or think they're going to go to the next level right now when their stock won't be nearly as high. If they come back with the right attitude, new facilities under their belt, new conference potentially within the next couple of years, I think once they have all that, it'll be the best opportunity for them if they really love the game, like I know they do, because they're here for a reason.
Yeah. And also kind of moving on to, the women's side of things. I mean, sure, they went 0-2 this week, I believe. I think it was a close OT loss. And then I want to say Middle Tennessee was a closer game, but I also want to say that one was, I think a 10-point blowout. 10-point loss, I want to say. But, the record is also kind of similarly bad, if not worse than the men's team right now. But the women's team is coming from bottom from last year. I mean, last year we bottomed out 2 wins all season. Aston, coming as new head coach, seems to have really set a culture here. We're really kind of building back up, I feel. We already have more wins than we did last year and conference wins, which we didn't even have. So, I mean, I look at the women's team as like, yeah, okay, they're kind of coming back on the up. We're using a lot of graduate transfers and, transferring seniors in this year to kind of just piece together a first-year roster because we had a massive talent exodus from last season's team, just people transferring because the program was dead.
Yeah.
So I look at it like, okay, the women's team is coming back up. Like, Aston's got a plan. She's working through it. It's going to take some time, but I see at least some progress of, okay, even in this first year, we're better. With that, pretty much any of the pieces that are going to be foundational for us, we're already looking like we can have something here.
Yeah. The women's team is just like the men's team, in my opinion, but I'd say they're a year ahead. As in, I know the women's basketball team, and I know that most of the team is young and they've only used a year or two of eligibility. So after one more season, I think they're looking at a top 5 team in Conference USA / AAC. So I think they're already going in the right direction with their culture. I've seen them at social events, at the race. I could see the bond. I could feel it. The spirit's high on the women's basketball team. The men's team, they need to gain that momentum for future years, but I think the women already have it, and within the next year, they'll already be on the upper half of Conference USA.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point there. So I also want to, kind of briefly touch on, because we didn't have the podcast last semester due to a variety of factors, but we're back for this semester, so we have to talk just a little bit about UTSA football. Everything. I mean, this was a massive improvement for the team and everything. 12-2 overall, 11-1 regular season, 1 Conference USA, and one of the best games I've seen, at least personally, live against Western Kentucky and everything. So, I mean, like, I wanted to get kind of your impressions, Luke, on, what a step up this was from even the year before that was kind of seen as this, like, dramatic improvement of the program with Traylor.
Yeah, I think it's very astounding, and it proves that Jeff Traylor is a great coach, probably one of the top in the country, because this was his second full season here, correct? And under 3 recruiting classes, he went from a losing team to 7-5 and then 12-2. I think that's really great because there's been some of the best college coaches ever haven't done that. The only ones who have ever turned a team around like that and win championship games, even if it's not at the same level as Conference USA championship, even though it's not a conference national championship, the only coach that I've done is Nick Saban, Urban Meyer, Ed Orgeron, and Bob Stoops. Those are the only coaches, and I'm sure there's some others, who can really turn a program around just like Traylor did. And at a school like this where, I mean, I've walked around before and people don't know where UTSA is, but the whole culture has just changed. I went actually to Disney World for Thanksgiving and I wore my UTSA gear, and I can't tell you how many times people walked past me and just said "Birds Up," and nobody would ever think that had happened. And a year or two ago, that would have never happened.
Yeah, I think it really is crazy just how much this last season kind of improved the national profile. I mean, for a good, solid, I would say 6 weeks there when we were still undefeated up until that North Texas game, we were the internet darlings. Mm-hmm. Everybody was talking about us. I mean, we were on ESPN pretty much every single, college football, game night recap. We were on there. I mean, that's just unheard of. And like you're saying with, going to Disney World, everybody knows the Roadrunner logo now just from this season, which is absolutely magical. And if you're, talking about the end of the Frank Wilson era, it seemed like the least possible thing that could ever happen here was to see a nationally recognized team like we have now in just 2 short years with him. Yeah. I think that is really incredible, honestly. And then I know that you're really big into recruiting and everything, and we just go out and sign the highest rated recruiting class we've ever had. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just huge, right?
I mean, when these juniors and seniors in high school, they want to play at the next level. they love football. When they see their home state schools are doing really good, and maybe they're not a top 5-star kid, but if they're a 4-star kid and they're like, oh, UTSA is in a great city, great atmosphere. They travel, which high school kids love. They love the gear. They love traveling. When they see we're getting on that big stage, that really excites them. And I don't think it's a coincidence that each year we've had a better recruiting class, and it only seems to be going up because UTSA is a new, fun, and exciting team. And even if you agree with him or not, RJ Young from Fox Sports rated UTSA damn near top 5 all year long just because we were undefeated. That gives publicity that high school kids love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I will fully admit here, RJ Young's rankings are complete, I would say madness is a great word for him.
Agreed.
But I appreciated them. Like, if I have UTSA ranked above Alabama, I mean, I might get institutionalized, but I'm going to appreciate it when he does it.
Yeah, he ranked Ohio State 20th all season long, but that's besides the point. I think this UTSA season, it was great for our football team, and we're only going to be going up.
Yeah, I think that, it might be almost asking too much to see another season like this because, 12-win seasons are magical. They don't come around very often. But, again, I just love, getting back to the culture aspect of things. He's built that culture here. Mm-hmm. The 2-1-0 triangle of toughness, all of the stuff associated with that is, amazing for what he has done for the program in terms of setting that identity. And it's something that you can continue to carry on, especially, he signs the contract extension.
Right.
You don't really see many group of 5 head coaches get the big money offers like it's rumored like Texas Tech floated him and turn them down and stay here instead. That's a rarity in the sport.
Yeah, he had a similar contract to James Franklin, who's Penn State's head coach. And there's another, I can't remember, but Scott Frost from Nebraska, he got a couple-year extension. These are top programs, so you want to expect a UTSA to do that, but we obviously trust him, and rightfully so, because he's done nothing but prove himself worthy of that extension.
Yeah, and again, it's just he recognizes what he can build here, I think, is the big thing. San Antonio, I've said this for ages now, especially when considering, okay, why doesn't San Antonio have a pro sports team like the NFL and stuff? It's I think we're the 7th largest city in this nation. I think that still holds up, I think.
I used to hear 6 or 7, but
yeah, that's a huge market. And you are the only major college in town here. You've got UT obviously an hour up the road in Austin, but that's in Austin.
Right.
UTSA is San Antonio's major Division I college. If you can just leverage that, people will want to come here. If you build that program, you can become the next major, I want to call it mid-major, but you would be the next mid-major Boise State-style program with sustained success for a decade.
Yeah.
You just have to leverage that.
Boise
location.
State, BYU, these schools, I think the only thing that's going to determine how great we are is our recruiting, because it would blow someone's mind just how many 3-stars and 4-star kids just don't get recruited. They don't get the love that these top 100 players get. But there's been plenty of stories of these 3-star level kids going to schools and changing a franchise around. Michael Thomas, 3-star kid. Chris Olave, he was a 3-star kid. Damon Lee, he was a 3-star. These kids that we could possibly get in the best high school recruiting state in the country. I think as if we have a great staff that are finding these kids, going to the Dallas area, if we're going to Central Texas, all these areas, if we're getting all those kids, then we're going to be ranked every year. That'll be just the standard.
Texas is just such a fertile recruiting ground that there's enough for everybody.
Right.
You just have to find the right kids that fit your program, and I think he's done a great job of that so far. Obviously, now with, our super seniors obviously graduating out, you're going to see some more openings starting to come up on the team, and Traylor's going to finally start getting his absolute, I recruited these guys by hand to start coming in. I think that's going to be really exciting to see what they get out of that because, we're getting some absolute, stud prospects. Like Zay Frazier, flipped from Kentucky to us on National Signing Day, which is, just frankly unheard of to see UTSA get a Power 5 guy like that and everything. So, you look at the quality of recruits Traylor's bringing in, the future just looks bright.
Yeah, it's just undeniable, especially I've been as an athlete in both facilities, this new race and this old race, well, not old race, but the old football housing area. And I remember telling me and some of my teammates that it's just remarkable how good we are this year with the race just now being built. Because I've gone in there, we were basically in a attic. Like it was just a bad.
I've heard
housing
like the
space.
athletics department was operating out of like shipping containers and some
Yeah,
sports and everything.
and
So
Trailer took that team with probably 80% of the players he didn't recruit and already won a Conference USA championship. I kind of disagree in the fact that should be our new standard. I don't think it'd be unrealistic to ask to do that again because I think this team's capable. We have a coaching staff that's capable, and we're hungry. We wanted to go 13-0. We wanted to go 12-0. We didn't, but I think they have that chip on their shoulder. They want to go to a bigger bowl game. They want to finish undefeated, and I think it's realistic.
yeah, I would love to. I think that these last 2 years in Conference USA are like the best shot we're gonna have at least for a little bit because. Well, I think that we compete favorably against most of the American. I want to say that if like you were to adjust and like okay, if we were to just make all of the conference moves that are basically a done deal like happen today and redo the recruitment rankings, then I think we come out like the 4th best team in the American recruiting ranking wise.
Yeah.
So I mean, like we're already recruiting them, but I do think that going from going from Conference USA to the American is a step up in the competition. So I don't know if it's reasonable to expect that immediate sort of same success. However, I think that it is the goal you need to shoot for. You can't say, "Oh, that's one good season. We're, good. That's another decade, guys. We'll come back." No, I mean they're gonna stay hungry.
I don't know. I think that Houston's gonna leave.
Yeah, Houston's gone, UCF's gone, and
The only team that I know is gonna stay that is a threat is Tulsa, right?
Memphis, I believe.
Memphis is staying.
I think Memphis is staying.
I don't view those teams as threats for UTSA. And I mean, I've seen on Twitter everything saying, "Oh, UTSA beat Illinois, and that team beat this team, and that team beat
the
Memphis."
transitive wins and all that.
That's not true. That's just a fantasy.
They're fun to look at. They don't mean anything.
But UTSA, they can easily beat those teams in the future.
They already beat Memphis.
Yeah, I think they can beat them again. I think that Memphis's recruiting is not superb to us. I don't think that Tulsa's anything to be scared of. I think UTSA can easily go undefeated, or even if they lose a game or two, they can still play themselves in an AAC championship game. And winning that, football is a weird sport. Teams can win or lose that you don't predict will happen. And they can find themselves in a big bowl game. So I don't think that it'll be unrealistic for them to be a top 2 team in the AAC immediately.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to make. I think that, it's just going to I think it's going to take a year. I think just a year to kind of get our feet under us. And because I just think that overall the level of quality of the American is just a little bit better. So you're going to see, I think, a little more like battles every other week. Yeah. I think that first year, because, there were a couple weeks this year where, like we just destroyed Rice. And it was just, it was fun to watch, but it was like, it isn't pushing us the same way.
Yeah.
Like those last couple of games of the season where it's like the UAB game and the second Western Kentucky game, it's like those were really pushing us. And I think those are going to kind of be the contemporaries that we measure ourselves against that first year as fellow members of Conference USA moving to the American and everything. I think that those games on a top of battles, I think that Tulsa will push us harder than, say, Rice. I think that's, yeah. So I think that first year is really just going to be a factor of getting our feet under us and kind of learning how to deal with that day-to-day grind. Because, I know that, you being a big Ohio State fan and everything, the Big Ten is a battle and a war, almost every week, it feels like. You guys are obviously the most talented team in that conference, I would say consistently every year and everything. But I think that you do have to work a little harder in that conference than you do in, say, Conference USA.
Maybe. But even if you're right, it does take a year. I don't think that's anything to be shameful of.
No.
Because I think that almost any team in the country would struggle going to a new conference because new scenery, new schedule, new layout, new competition. The AAC has better players. So even if it takes a year or even 2, I don't think it would be shameful.
No.
It'd be expected.
Exactly. And if you were to exceed those expectations, that's great.
Like I think they will.
Yeah. You are very optimistic on that point. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. We'll see. Now, if we can win a bowl game, can we just get the first bowl game win out of the way? I feel like this year we kind of got sabotaged and that we were too good. Mm-hmm. So it put us against a really good San Diego State team and everything. If we had, been a mid-table Conference USA team or something like that, we'd have rolled the bowl game. But it's the price you pay for being good is you get the marquee matchups. And
yeah, and I think that I don't think San Diego State was that much better than us.
No, it was,
They won that game.
they won that game. They were the better team on that day.
Yeah, but with the opt-outs and maybe we were a little excited for just getting the Conference USA dub. But next year, if the same kind of situation and scenario happens, I think that UTSA with that experience would roll the table.
I would agree with that point. I would agree. So obviously, it's Super Bowl week.
Right.
So we have to talk Super Bowl, and obviously, it's pretty clear of who I'm going for here in my team. And I know for conversations with you, you're on the opposite side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So let's talk the Super Bowl, Luke. How's it gonna go and why?
Well, I'm a diehard Bengals fan, along with being a Buckeye fan. So this has been a long time coming for me. Even my dad, he was texting me throughout the game, and after each victory, even not even just the Kansas City game, but after the Raider game, it was like, I'm literally crying right now because he hasn't seen this since '88. And I just remember growing up as a kid and just watching us lose to the Steelers in the playoffs, and the Texans in the playoffs, and we lost to them several times in the playoffs. We just couldn't get that win.
The Adam Pac-Man Jones game, the Vontaze Burfict decapitating Antonio Brown game.
Yeah,
And,
those
like
guys,
so many heartbreaking moments there.
Those guys were bad for the locker room. Nobody wanted those guys. They just hurt players. Even though I guess they set the tone as we're the bad boys.
It was a physical defense.
Yeah, that wasn't safe. That wasn't fun.
Yeah.
And Andy Dalton, I love him. Grew up rooting for him, but Joe Burrow just takes that team to another level.
Absolutely. There's no comparison between Andy Dalton and Joe Burrow. And like the Red Rifle in like those years where they were going to the playoffs was like really good.
Yeah.
Like Andy Dalton was really good, but Joe Burrow's just got that little extra.
Yeah,
It just makes all the difference in the world.
I think the team just likes him more than those teams liked Andy Dalton, and not even because he was a bad guy, but just because you hear everybody. Gronk just said the other day, if he wanted to play for any quarterback, it'd be Burrow. That's not Brady.
Like leaving Tom Brady, I want to go play for Joe Burrow. I mean, like that is about as good a ringing endorsement as you can because Gronk unretired to go play with Brady again.
Exactly, and all you see on Instagram and Twitter, all the social media sites, is Joe Burrow smoking a cigar, dancing in the locker room. The team, they're just fun. Everybody loves to play for them. With that being said, though, I love the Bengals. I just don't see how they can survive against the Rams. I think that offensive line, not only do they give 9 sacks against the Titans, they did squeak by, but I don't think that could happen. If they give more than 5 sacks, Joe Burrow doesn't have room to operate. I think Jalen Ramsey will cover Jamar Chase. I think he'll lock him up. He won't get above 80 yards receiving. I just don't think it'll be close. I think the Rams will win. I think they're still ticked off from 3 seasons ago losing to the Patriots in the boring fashion that they did.
That was the worst Super Bowl ever. I mean, I'm not even talking about the ones I've watched. I'm even like talking about going back through the archives, trying to pick out a worst game. That was the worst game just because it was so boring. I mean, there have been blowouts before, but that was just boring football to watch for, 4 hours of my life that I'm never getting back. And as a Rams fan, that was just eternal suffering.
And most that team is back, with the exception of Matt Stafford, Von Miller, OBJ, and Jalen Ramsey, just to name a few guys. And all 4 of those guys are playing for something. Matt Stafford's been doubted for 13 years. OBJ, he had a terrible time in Cleveland, but now he's showing his true colors again, that he can be a top star. Jalen Ramsey, that'll just solidify his legacy. And Von Miller's been in this situation before with the Broncos in Super Bowl 50, obviously won and got the Super Bowl MVP. So I think all of these guys have something to prove to solidify their resume. That the Bengals, even though they keep winning, and I love that they keep winning, each week since Week 17, they just beat Kansas City in the regular season. Every game after that just felt like, oh, sweet, we're just happy to be here. In a good way, not shameful way. And even though they don't act like it, that's why they're still winning. They're playing with nothing to lose. But I just think the Rams team is hungrier. They've been embarrassed in history more often. With these same set of players, I want to go on this big stage now and say, you know what, it's our turn, it's our league.
Yeah, I think for me personally, looking at this game, this looks like an entertaining game, right? I mean, you got new, fresh, exciting quarterbacks that have never been here before. You got 2 franchises that haven't won anything for, a while. I mean, Bengals obviously way longer than the Rams and everything.
The Bengals have never won a Super
Yeah,
Bowl.
they've never won a Super Bowl. They didn't win a playoff game in, since the 90s until this season.
88. 88.
88? I thought it was 91 or something like that.
88.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You see, even worse.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, both these franchises haven't tasted like true success in a while. Bengals never.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's a fun game. Even as a Rams fan, I will fully admit, like, if the Bengals go on and win this thing and Joe Burrow, throws for 400 yards, I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, the Bengals have suffered long enough; they could use a bone. That being said, mostly for the reasons that you have already stated, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that it's going to be a tighter game than I think you think it will be, but especially the offensive line for the Bengals. Like, that's just the issue there. I mean, 9 sacks against the Titans, and they still somehow won.
Yeah.
You're not going to get away with that against the Rams, especially with, I mean, just how athletic they are.
Yeah.
Like, you can get I think with the Chiefs, the Bengals offensive line did way better against the Chiefs than I thought they were going to. Like, they kept Burrow, like, alive. Like, he was still moving and scrambling, but I don't think he can do that against the Rams. I mean, Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, those are just 3 athletic defensive linemen that can chase down, I would say, pretty much anybody outside of, like, your top-tier scramblers like Kyler and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, I think that Burrow's just going to get hounded, and I don't think it's going to be the same sort of situation as last year's Super Bowl where Mahomes is just running for his life the entire game,
Right.
but everybody else is letting him down and not catching his throws. I just think it's going to be Burrow's going to be trying to run for his life, and he just can't go anywhere.
Yeah, and I do think he's more athletic than people give him credit for. He is an athletic dude. He actually was a defensive end in high school.
I did
along
not
with
know
quarterback.
this.
Yeah, and he really wanted to play defensive end at Ohio State when he was there his first 2 years. He was always doing the rough drills. So I don't think him getting hit will mess with him and running around. But I just think that he's just going to run out of time with Jalen Ramsey and the rest of those DBs covering Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and all of them. I just think Von Miller and Aaron Donald, they'll just escape these offensive linemen before a wide receiver can get open.
I think that's a fair point to make. I will say, if the Bengals do win this game, it's not going to be Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
It's going to be T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. They're going to have to really have huge games to make up for it, because I do think Chase will have maybe 1 or 2 catches that are like, he's going to get his.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree with you. I think that Jalen's just too good at locking it down, and you're not going to have a situation where the Rams kind of do what the Chiefs did in Week 17, which is like,
Right.
We're just going to let Jamar Chase run wild.
Let him get like 250 or whatever.
Exactly. It's like, no, they are going to make sure that Jamar Chase is not the guy to beat him.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say that the Bengals' defense in the second half against the Chiefs was probably the best defense I've seen all year long.
I mean, that was locked down. They've done that for a while now. These last 4 or 5 weeks, they really get lit up in the first half. And then I don't exactly know what defensive adjustments they're making in the second half, but they always seem to come out and just lock people down, which is impressive. I mean, that's what you need to do when playoff football.
But I still think, and I love Eli Apple, former Buckeye, he gets burned a lot.
He does.
When you
Cooper
have
Kupp is going to make his life a living hell.
Jesse Bates has been great. Eli Apple, he's been great the last couple weeks, and Von Bell's been awesome. But I just think OBJ and Cooper Kupp, I just don't know how they can contain them.
No.
So if the key will have to be like Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard rushing Matt Stafford.
And
like
Stafford's going to have a bad game.
Yeah.
Because he's had some bad ones this year. I will fully admit that as a fan. I got to admit, around like week 15, I was starting to feel a little iffy on Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
For a while there, I was like, man, did we really trade all those picks to basically get a guy that looks better than Jared Goff on paper, but in the moments where we really need him to show up, he's Jared Goff again. And then, I mean, during the playoffs, he's redeemed himself in my eyes. I mean, he's been great. I mean, that, Tampa Bay, even though it was a blown coverage, he still had to make the throw, and he made the throw, which Jimmy Garoppolo can attest you don't always make in the clutch.
Yeah. And you could blame some of Matt Stafford's dip in the middle of the season as them getting OBJ. He's given him the ball more often because OBJ's numbers have risen the last several weeks.
Definitely.
He went from like 3 targets a game to like now it's like 7.5 to 8.
He's very much that number 2 option now that Stafford is way more comfortable at looking for.
And so, like 2 months later, Matt Stafford looks to be the same like he was in the beginning of the season. So I think those were just growing pains. I was never concerned about them, and I always called from the beginning of the season that the Rams were going to take the NFC. I just think all the points said in the beginning, I just think they're the hungriest team. They were embarrassed. All their top guys have something to prove. Matt Stafford's hungry. Cooper Kupp can cap off one of the best if not the best single season receiving record.
He's got an
ever.
argument at least to say just he doesn't have any record, but he's like number 2 in pretty much all of them for a
Yeah,
season.
I mean, he does have the most reception yards of all time in one season, but he did have an extra game in these playoff games. But I think they've all been well deserved, and winning the Super Bowl for the Rams, it'll be earned. It'll be earned. Just like I really hope that I'm wrong. I really hope the Bengals win it, but I think it's the Rams' year.
Yeah, I mean, considering that we still haven't had a first-round pick since Jared Goff, and we just seem to be continuously going all in, just to get one finally as a fan will finally feel good, and not like we've just been fruitlessly pushing a boulder up a mountain and just have it roll back down on us. That'd be really nice. And I think the added bonus here that we really only got in the last few weeks is Eric Weddle can get a ring before he rides back off into the sunset again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cool with that happening. I mean, like, I know that it's like, man, he didn't play like the entire season. We signed him for the playoffs, so I mean, like, how much does he really work? But I mean, it's just he's been so necessary for us. I mean, he led us in tackles that last game against the Niners. Like, I mean, he stepped up really big. So to be able to send out a guy that was like so good for so long in the NFL with a ring when he was retired for 2 years,
Yeah.
would be, I think, really, really cool to see.
And even though times have changed in the last 13 years, if the Rams do lose the Super Bowl, meaning the Bengals would win it, both those divisions would just look crazy because the NFC West, everyone knows it's the best division, but all 4 of those teams would have lost the Super Bowl in the last 13 years. With the Cardinals, they lost to, I think it was the Steelers back in
San Antonio Holmes game.
Yeah. The Seahawks did win one, but
They
the
won
next
one,
year,
but then they did the
lost
Malcolm
one.
Butler thing and didn't give the ball to
49ers
Marshawn.
lost to the Ravens in 2013.
I think it was the 2013 was the year, 2012 was the season, I believe.
Yeah.
And then they did it again to the Chiefs as they lost again.
Yeah, exactly. And then the Rams would lose 2, so they would all have lost games.
We'd have a lot of losses on the ledger.
But then the AFC North, even though the Browns are the Browns, and they were many people's preseason favorite.
They looked so good on paper, and then they just fell apart due to injuries and, I would say, egos.
That would have meant the Steelers have won 2, the Ravens won, and the Bengals won. So 3 teams of 4 in that division would have won. And, I mean, just thinking about it right now, that has to be like the best division resume in the past 13 years.
Absolutely. I mean, like, if you exclude the AFCs because it's the Patriots and everybody else, like, not many other divisions have a Super Bowl champion at this point besides, like, Tampa with the NFC South. But, I mean, Brady retired, so, I mean, that division seems to be going through a dark age now without the Saints or anything like that. I mean, like, I think that those are the only 2 candidates for the best division in football at this point / resume of the last, I would say 15 years.
You could say AFC West with the Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos.
Yeah, Chargers.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the Chargers have been charging now for, like, what feels like 10 years, where it's like they're so close and they always find a way at the end.
Yeah.
And if I can go off on a little tangent just real quick, the Raiders robbed us of the best NFL playoff finish of all time, and that they kicked that dang field goal at the end of that Sunday night game. Like, if you had just given us the tie, like, that's all I'm asking for here. Just give us the tie to send both to the playoffs. But that didn't happen, so, I mean, Chargers got to mess it up somehow, I guess.
I kind of like that, though. I know many people hate Big Ben, and he got a butt whooping to end his career off. But I liked sending him to the playoffs that one last time.
In some ways, it was a bit of a, it was a nice send-off for him.
Yeah.
And everything. I mean, he did get his butt kicked. I mean, that was very much not I'm riding off into the sunset, more of I got put into a confident high noon.
Yeah.
And now I'm just getting rolled out of town.
And now he's going to be in the shadows of Brady's retirement in 5 years.
Brady couldn't even let Ben have a retirement to himself. Like, Hall of Fame ceremony, that's the Brady show. Unless he comes back, which, Brady now seems to be, at least going, I may not, but I think that's just marketing.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Or he was just speaking from his heart. I mean, all he said was he doesn't know what the future holds, and in 6 months he might feel differently. But we could say the same about all of us and whatever we do.
Yeah.
We might feel differently in 6 months. And maybe, he might be a little butthurt he's not in the Super Bowl, and he knows he's Tom freaking Brady. So him saying that will spark some drama. But at the end of the day, I think he's done because the reasons he said he wanted to retire were for family. So in 6 months, will his family problems be different?
No.
His kids are only getting 6 months older.
Exactly.
So I don't see him unretiring.
Nah, I looked at that statement he put out. I was like, okay, yeah, you're saying, never say never. You can say never, Tom. It's okay to say never.
Yeah, I mean,
not just because I'm okay with the NFL actually being interesting again and not seeing Tom Brady somehow pull off every comeback known to man. I mean, I got so many flashbacks to 28-3 during that Rams game. I was sick to my stomach until the end.
Yeah.
Like, oof.
That would have been awesome if you pulled that off.
Oh,
though.
it would have been awesome in some ways, but in other ways, not so much.
Yeah, every time you would have seen that highlight, you would just think, "Dang, that's how."
Yeah, that's how it happened. That's how we had the chance to end Tom Brady, and we didn't do it.
But that's not what you're saying.
Nope, we're saying that Matt Stafford ended Tom Brady's career. And
Yeah.
that's the best sentence I've said all week. Yeah, so I mean, Super Bowl is gonna be awesome and everything. I mean, like I'm gonna be watching it. Obviously, I mean, I know that you are as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I can't wait. I really do think the Rams are gonna win, but hopefully it's a fun game. Two exciting teams, flashy, cool. I think the Bengals are a lot more fun to root for, but I don't
They're
think
the new kids on the block.
Yeah, but nobody's gonna hate the Rams winning it. People, it's they're more deserving to win it, which I think makes a lot of people happy. So
I think like if we were to still have like let's just say hypothetically Jared Goff somehow got us here, I don't think we'd be as easy to root for. But Matt Stafford's on the team,
yeah,
and he's been like you're saying he was doubted for 13 years and everything, and he finally escaped Detroit, and he came here and he's immediately. I mean, like how can you not root for the guy after so long of being called Stat Padford and stuff like that? I mean, like
exactly.
he's just easy to root for.
Yeah,
So we also have to talk about today because today was the NBA trade deadline when we're recording this, and there was the big move finally in that Ben Simmons is no longer on the Sixers, and they traded James Harden from the Nets to go get Ben Simmons. I believe it was Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and 2 firsts for Harden.
right.
So, like, what do you think about that move and everything for both teams involved, I mean, Simmons didn't play all year, and now here he is getting shipped out with a bunch of other people for a NBA player in Harden who was discontent for the second year in a row
Right.
on his second team.
I think, though those are good points about Harden, I think the Sixers won this trade with ease. Without Ben Simmons, the Sixers are still a top 4 seed in the East, still dominating, and Embiid is right now running away with the MVP award. And I think that Harden has something to offer that Ben Simmons never could, as in obviously shooting. But when he drives to the basket, which can space Joel to come back out, he can knock down a 3. And their pick and roll game, I just feel, will be unmatched. I think with the Nets that how do we know Simmons is all of a sudden mentally free? How do we know that he's okay? I'm ready to hoop again. He hasn't played a game all year long. The last footage we have of him is him with his sweatpants on and his phone in his pocket back in October.
Some like early NBA preseason workouts and everything.
Yeah, we don't know where his head's at. We don't know what shape he's been in. Kyrie still can't play anywhere besides like 5 states in the country, and so he's not going to be in at least half the games in the playoffs. And he also, I don't even know if he can play in Philadelphia. And Katie's still hurt right now. They've lost at least 8 of their 9 last games.
I want to say it's 8 in a row.
Yeah.
I think.
I think the Sixers are running away and laughing with this trade.
Yeah, I looked at this trade, and I actually think that both teams win in different ways. So I think, obviously, Harden, from all reports, and now we kind of know for sure, didn't want to be in Brooklyn anymore. Something kind of soured. I point the finger at Kyrie not being around, so the big three could never really play together. Because, I mean, they went 13-3 when they played together. 16 games was as many games as they played. They were 13-3. When all 3 of those guys were on the court for the Nets, they were really good. But they were never on the court together. There were always injuries, and then Kyrie with, his vaccination stance, he couldn't play. And I think that really soured Harden on Brooklyn as a location because I think he liked it in Houston more, I think is the big thing, is that he went to Brooklyn where he wasn't really happy with the location, but he liked playing with the guys he had. But he couldn't play with the guys anymore, really, and he was still in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. So I think that really kind of shaped his perceptions of, okay, I want to leave. I want to get out.
Yeah.
So you look at it like, okay, so Harden didn't want to be there anymore, so he's probably leaving in free agency. So the Nets have to get something for him. And you go get Simmons, and for my money, Ben Simmons is the worst player that you can consider a all-star superstar in the NBA. He can't shoot. I mean, he's got the mental block, like you said. He can't shoot, and he doesn't even really want to try to anymore. Like, Philly broke him so mentally in that playoff series. He just didn't want to play basketball. And like you're saying, we don't know where his head's at. So let's just say hypothetically that Simmons, gets his mind right, and he, I want to play basketball again, which from the reports I was reading, it seems like he's willing to do for Brooklyn. He's like, yeah, I can come back. It's just going to take me a little time to work through some things, and I'll be back. Ben Simmons fits in much better in Brooklyn than he does in Philly. In that with Philly, you had Embiid and you had Simmons that played and operated in the same areas. And that just created a logjam. And in today's NBA, you need spacing. And Simmons and Embiid together wrecked the Sixers' spacing. So even if they had shooting, which was always kind of the Achilles heel of the Sixers for a while there, is that they didn't really have good three-point shooters. Well, even when they got Curry and they had Danny Green and everything, they were still struggling because that space is still clogged. I think you switch them. You give Harden to Philly. Now Embiid has space. Now Harden can work. You give Simmons to Brooklyn. Simmons doesn't have to shoot the basketball. If I'm Steve Nash, I'm telling Ben Simmons, you are allowed to pass, you're allowed to rebound, you're allowed to play defense. You're not allowed to shoot the basketball.
But you're right. Just a month ago, maybe a little longer, Kyrie and Harden seemed to be the best of friends. When Kyrie first came back, they were laughing at the podium together, whatever. But I think Harden left because he realized that Kyrie's not getting vaccinated, and there's no way out of this. With Ben Simmons playing there, not only question marks about his mental, Kyrie's still not going to play. And with Ben Simmons, what's he going to do when them and the 76ers meet in the playoffs? What's he going to do when he has to go to Philadelphia? Is he just not going to play?
That'll be must-see TV.
I don't know why or how the Nets won this trade. I know that you could say that, oh, James Harden could just leave and they get nothing, but they got Ben Simmons. I don't know. I don't know how valuable that is unless they move him, or I don't know. I just see the 76ers, they're running away with this.
Yeah, I think that you also have to remember they are getting other pieces besides Simmons, which I think is an indictment on Simmons. Any other kind of trade like this where you could say they're trading two All-Stars would be more like a one-for-one.
Straight up.
Especially when Simmons is the younger All-Star. But instead, Simmons and a bunch of other assets for Harden.
Mm-hmm.
So, which really tells you something about how the rest of the NBA views Simmons at this point.
Yeah.
I think that Seth Curry is going to be really good with Brooklyn. I think that they've been missing Joe Harris a lot this season. So having another kind of dead ice knockdown three-point shooter will help them. But I think you're right in that Brooklyn isn't a big three anymore. It's now kind of like the big two, and then Ben Simmons is kind of there doing his thing. He won't have to shoot as much if KD and Kyrie are playing, which KD is hurt, Kyrie isn't vaccinated. So we don't know, and especially because if Brooklyn manages, because I want to say that Brooklyn is the 8th seed right now. If Brooklyn can kind of pull out of this tailspin they're in and kind of like get back up maybe towards fighting for home court, if you play 4 games in Brooklyn, Kyrie can't play those 4 games. Like, that's not going to work in the playoffs for them. So really, I just see the Nets kind of spinning in neutral here with this lineup unless something changes with Simmons, which it's not going to, and it's not going to change with Kyrie either. So
yeah, that's why I don't agree that it's even a big two. Kyrie can't play. So I think that just Simmons and KD would work with these other pieces, but throwing Kyrie in and out of there, I just don't see it. Until they play the 76ers, then I think Ben just melts down again. And the 76ers win it, which I think will happen. But right now, I don't see the Nets as serious contenders.
yeah, I will say also, if Harden can't win a title at any point, like not even with the Sixers, let's say he plays a couple years with the Sixers and then goes somewhere else and still can't win a title. To me, I don't know what kind of reputation he has at this point, because he's just fleeing every team he can to go win a ring. And if he can't get it done, then who is James Harden at that point?
A regular season warrior. Because even though right now he's on his 4th team, so is Russell Westbrook, but I still think Russell Westbrook will go down in history as the best player to not win a ring, and definitely ahead of James Harden.
I will say I think that entirely depends on where Harden's career goes towards the tail end. Because right now with Russ, we are saying the destruction of Russell Westbrook, who is getting the LA fans begging him not to shoot the basketball late in games.
But then you see last night when Russ doesn't play, they still lose. They still get blown out by the Blazers with AD and Bron playing. And so not only that, Russ has always been this. He's never been a good shooter. Harden is melting down. He's literally going like this. Russell Westbrook, he's just doing the same thing but on a bigger stage.
The NBA changed the foul rules on Harden, and Harden doesn't know how to play basketball anymore.
And he's out of shape. He doesn't even look in shape. He's bigger. He's slower. He doesn't go to the hoop anymore. Russ is doing the same thing, and yesterday was the first game he missed all season long. What has Harden done to go down in history that Russ hasn't done? And he's more of an icon. He's more of an icon. Everyone a lot of people hate him, but nobody hates him because of his lack of work ethic. Everyone loves how he plays. Many people don't like his off the court stuff or his aggression, which is understandable, and he might drive you insane. But growing up an OKC Thunder fan, watching him win all these playoff series, tear the Spurs up, the Grizzlies up from 011 all the way to 16, 17, it's just remarkable. And I
He
don't.
was special. Those years were absolutely peak Russell Westbrook. He's fun to watch. When Russell Westbrook is operating at his best, he's so fun to watch.
He's probably one of the top 3 most fun dudes to watch in the whole NBA. Him, Steph, Dame. I mean,
I think that's fair assertion. It's just when things go wrong with Russ, it just looks really bad.
it looks bad and it doesn't look fun. It doesn't look smooth. It looks herky jerky. But I don't think that takes away with him being the greatest player to not win a ring.
Now, what would you say if I were to float like some of the older guys like Stockton and Malone? With Stockton with all the stats of, assists, steals, all-time leader. Malone, second in NBA points scored of all time.
I'd say Stockton is very overrated. But Malone, yeah, of course. Malone, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, those are easily the top 3 to me. But Russ goes down in history more than AI, James Harden. Just what he's done, things that haven't been done since Oscar Robinson. 4 of the last 5 years, excluding this year, getting a triple-double, still getting that MVP, going to the playoffs every single year. Even took that terrible Wizards team last year to the playoffs.
He carried them.
In 2017, when KD left, took that terrible Thunder team to the 5 seed and just broke so many records that season, those buzzer beaters. Everybody loves playing with Russell Westbrook. He's never had one teammate say, I didn't like playing with him. Everybody loves playing with him. So everyone vouches for him. He's fun. He's cool. I just don't see how James Harden will go higher legacy-wise than Russ.
I think that's fair. I think that Harden, to me, is a complicated figure in that I don't think he's as good as everybody says he is. A lot of time, I felt like the foul calls in particular, like the last 5 years, was really propping him up.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at him now, he feels lost out there. He doesn't feel like Harden used to for a lot of people. I think we're seeing that right now. And, well, Harden has the ability to be good and maybe even great sometimes. It just, kind of like you're saying, he's a regular season warrior. And, like, when he really needs to be great, he can't be.
Exactly. And you could say the same thing about Russ, but they've done the exact same things in the postseason. But Russ has done it longer, and he's gone more consistent in his older days with the Thunder. And I just think James Harden, he even though he's still averaging 22, 8, and 10, which is still good in a down year, I just don't see what he's doing is more independent, as in he shoots just like Dame and Steph. But Russ, you can't compare Russ.
Yeah, Russ has no real, like, the same kind of style.
Yeah.
Like, I think you could look at some of the, like, newer point guards that really love to attack, like John Morant, as, like, another kind of guy that's just...
He's probably the best comparison.
He's really aggressive out there. He loves to attack the rim. I mean, his bounce is incredible. It reminds me of Russ's old bounce. Because Russ used to get up. And Jaw's got that same sort of stuff. So I think that's the best comparison. But even still, it's not a perfect comparison.
It's not.
You look at Harden... There are other guys that do what Harden does.
Yeah.
But there is no comparison for Russ. I'll fully admit that.
The only thing Harden does that's like different than everyone else is drawing weak fouls and going to the line, which isn't fun and it's not cool.
It's boring. It made me hate the NBA for a little bit there with just how ridiculous those foul draws were coming.
Yeah, exactly. So I stand by what I say. I think Russ is at least a top 3 player of all time to never win a ring. I think Harden would be around the 5 or 6 range. Still an all-time great player, still top 50 of all time. But, yeah, I think even if there's nothing he can do that'll change that unless he takes a terrible team to a championship and wins it, which I don't think he's capable of.
I don't think so either. Harden, especially with his moves, Harden has made very clear, I don't think I can do it by myself. I need to have a buddy, which that to me is more of the modern NBA is that, guys are much less wed to the idea of I can solo carry a team on my back to a title without another superstar to help me. That isn't really the NBA we exist in anymore, at least besides Giannis. Giannis is like the only guy that you look at like, okay, does he have a top 10 player beside him?
And that's why he's so beloved.
Yeah,
that's why everybody was rooting for them last year.
Yeah, obviously, Chris Paul winning would have been cool. But there was something special about Giannis winning it, especially after there was that, kind of waffling of, is he going to come back to Milwaukee? Is he going to leave? And he comes back and then he wins a ring. It's like, he's the people's champion at that point. Like,
yeah, I never thought he'd leave because he always claimed he loved the city, but there were tamperings around there. And if he did lose that finals, I mean, who knows? Maybe he does change his mind.
He probably leaves if he loses.
But
that's my feeling.
Yeah, he was down to the Nets last playoffs, down early to the Suns, but just came back every series and just dominated, especially that 50-point game and those crazy blocks at the end of the game. The Bucks last season, that's honestly an asterisk at this point of just a guy soloing with the team on his back.
Yeah, I mean, past that, that's just been the standard now for so long is you need that second superstar.
Yeah.
Beside you, and that seems to be what Harden's committed himself to. He isn't going to try and be a mold breaker. I'm just going to do what everybody else is doing, and I'm going to be, I'm going to play wingman to somebody. Because I think Embiid's the lead of that team in Philadelphia. Harden's being the support player in that role.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely with this MVP level season he's having right now, he is the leader of that team, but the ball's going to be in James Harden's hand. So, as great as the season Embiid's having, he's the leader of that team. The team will go as far as James Harden will take them in the playoffs.
Which, I don't know, to me, not that far.
Yeah.
Like, don't go farther than Brooklyn will. If Brooklyn even makes it at this point, because I don't know how that's going to work. But the Philly will go further than Brooklyn, but they're not going to go all the way.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think that Milwaukee's having another good year. And have won a title now, so they know how to do it. And then I look at Miami. Miami has looked really good at times this year.
I don't buy Miami.
You don't buy Miami?
I think easily it'll be the Bucks and the 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals. It could go either way. I'll probably make a better prediction when the time comes because we haven't even seen James Harden in a uniform yet, so we don't know. But right now, just by the look of things in the field this season, there's only like 26 games left. I think that those two teams are clearly cut in the East. Miami, I don't buy them.
Yeah. I mean, not to discount other teams like Chicago, but to me, Chicago's too early. They're still learning. They need to learn how to win the playoffs.
Right.
I think, but I don't know. We'll see. That's the exciting part is that I don't feel like there's a clear runaway team this year.
There's not.
It's like out and out better. Like Phoenix has looked really good all year. Golden State's looked really, really good at times. And also there have been some games like last night where it's like, man, they really look like the Warriors from the last 2 years where they were still, in the lottery and still kind of trying to figure things out. But, I mean, like, the Lakers aren't good this year. Brooklyn, I don't know what they are anymore. Philly, we got to see.
The Clippers are still filled with injuries.
Yeah, Kawhi isn't coming back. Neither is PG.
Yeah.
Like, it's a wide open field this year, which is exciting as a sports fan. Like, I love going into the playoffs not knowing who's going to win.
Yeah. I mean, Kawhi and PG do have a chance to return, especially Kawhi soon within the first couple weeks of March, but at that point you still only have 5 weeks remaining, probably 15 16 games. They're still sixth seed, I believe, so they could be exciting in the postseason like they were last year. But the Mavericks are coming on. They just made a trade with Kristaps Porzingis, and Luka I think is still the best player in the NBA, younger than 25.
I'd agree with that.
So yeah, it's wide open. It's gonna be fun. I'd say it's definitely looking like Suns Bucks in the finals, maybe part 2. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and also I don't consider them a title threat, but like Cleveland, shout out to Cleveland. They're actually winning without LeBron for once. That is so impressive to me.
For once, since like the 80s.
Exactly, they're doing it without LeBron, which is really cool to see with like Darius Garland earning an All-Star nom and DeJounte Murray with San Antonio. Obviously, Spurs aren't in it at all this year. But it's still cool to see another Spur finally kind of like realize his potential.
Yeah.
At least and everything. So it's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
All right. So that's pretty much all we have time for this week, Luke. Do you have any final closing thoughts you want to come across and discuss? Or
I don't. I think it's going to be a great rest of the semester doing this podcast.
Same here. Really happy to be working with you here.
Yeah, just covering sports and go Bengals. Who day?
Go Rams.
Thanks for watching. Click our logo to subscribe or click the videos for more from the Paisano. Leave a comment letting us know your thoughts and what you'd like to see us cover next.